Leela sat on the park bench, her arms folded tightly around herself as if to shield her from the world. The warm afternoon sun bathed everything in gold, but she felt nothing. Life had become a monotonous loop of failures and questions. She glanced around. Children laughed as they chased each other. A couple strolled hand in hand, and an artist sketched in the distance. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere. Everyone except her. She stared at the ground, biting her lip to hold back tears. Why can't I just be happy like them? Maybe I'm not meant to be. Maybe I'm not enough. Rough day? A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Startled, she looked up to see an elderly man with silver hair and a kind face. He held a wooden box, worn but polished, its surface catching the sunlight. His eyes crinkled at the corners, not with mockery, but with an understanding that made her chest tighten. Mind if I sit? He asked, gesturing to the empty space beside her. She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. The man sat down with a sigh of relief, setting the box on his lap. For a while, neither of them spoke. Leela shifted uncomfortably, unsure why he had chosen to sit there when other benches were empty. You remind me of someone, he said finally. Who? She asked, her voice wary. My younger self, he replied, chuckling softly. I used to sit on this very bench, feeling like the world had passed me by. Like I wasn't good enough to deserve happiness. Leela frowned, the words hitting too close to home. What changed? The man tapped the lid of his box. This did. Someone gave me this when I needed it most. Would you like to see it? Curiosity flickered through her sadness. What's in it? Instead of answering, he opened the box slowly, revealing a simple mirror. Confused, Leela stared at it. A mirror? What's so special about that? It's not the mirror, he said, turning it toward her. It's what you see in it. Reluctantly, she leaned forward and gazed at her reflection. Her face was pale, her eyes tired, and her lips pressed into a thin line. She flinched. All I see is someone broken. The man shook his head gently. Look again. Really look. Leela's hands clenched in her lap, but she obeyed. This time, she noticed the faint scars on her cheek from a childhood fall, a reminder of how she'd once laughed even through tears. Her dark eyes, deeper than she'd realized, reflecting resilience she hadn't acknowledged. I still don't get it, she whispered, her voice trembling. That person staring back at you, the man said softly, has endured storms most people wouldn't survive. You've cried yourself to sleep and still woken up the next day. You've doubted yourself and still kept going. That's strength, Leela. That's worth. You don't need anyone else's permission to be happy. You deserve it because you're you. Tears spilled over, and she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. I don't feel like I deserve it. He closed the mirror gently, his hands weathered but steady. The hardest part of happiness is believing you're worthy of it. But you are. You've always been. The world tries to make us forget that. Don't let it win. His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, melting a piece of the icy wall she'd built around her heart. What if I forget again? She asked hesitantly. He smiled, placing the box in her hands. Keep this. Whenever you doubt, look at yourself and remember what I said. The world isn't brighter because it's perfect. It's brighter because you are part of it. The man stood and tipped his hat. Be kind to yourself, Leela. Happiness isn't something you earn, it's something you're already worthy of. As he walked away, she watched him until he disappeared into the bustling park. She sat there for a long time, the box on her lap, the man's words echoing in her mind. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt enough. She opened the mirror again, staring at her reflection with fresh eyes. This time, she smiled, and as she stood to leave, the sunlight seemed a little warmer, the world a little kinder because now, so was she.